Hello, everybody. Brian Schwager here, founder of Wellness Movement Services. I hope you're doing well today. What I'd like to do is start a video series talking about my five-step process, or what I refer to as 5 steps towards wellness and movement. It's an incredible story about how this came about and how effective it's been for my service, my business, and for my individual clients. A step-by-step process makes it a lot easier to know what the outcome is, both for the trainer and for the client. And then within each step, there are phases and systems that the client will follow, which will help them to help themselves in the long run. It's all about teaching people how to fish so that we can feed them for a lifetime. So without further ado, let's get into this video presentation and start with looking at the 5-step process. So I want to preface this first step, the explanation of this first step. I want a little bit of a lead in. What brought me to this conclusion and the final design and implementation of this type of a methodology? Well, it all started with a conversation, a consultation I had in the middle 90s, one in particular that stood out to me, and then the rest was history. Now, I want to also kind of give you an idea that I've been doing this for over 40 years. That in the 90s was a huge transformational process for my career. I went from being a fitness enthusiast in my teenage years to an athlete in the martial arts and got into kickboxing. I was in the martial arts for 17 years. And within that martial arts career, that's really where my fitness, the adventures towards fitness and personal training really took off. Because I worked out so much before getting into martial arts, I was heavy into weight training with a number of friends of mine at school, through school, I should say, and people and kids in my neighborhood. So I was always gravitated towards exercise. My dad used to exercise in the basement. My uncle was a non-competitive natural bodybuilder. And my uncle's right here, my Uncle Herb. This is my dad and mom over here. But that was the main, I saw that as a way of gaining self-esteem, self-confidence. And then later on, I met these neighborhood guys who I went to school with, and they took it a lot more serious. So there's no playing around. I worked out with them for a number of years. Then I fell in love with martial arts due to Bruce Lee. And lo and behold, the martial arts dojo where I ended up at 4 Winds Martial Arts, or what's now called Sippins, 4 Winds Martial Arts. My grandmaster instructor is Tom Sippin, or Thomas Sippin. He was also very fit, and he had a weightlifting area right in the dojo. So there I was, working out, learning martial arts, working out, learning martial arts, and I really took to both. It really became easy for me to design exercise programs, and it was a lot of fun, of course, learning martial arts. And it wasn't just karate or taekwondo; it was a mixed martial arts. We were one of the first mixed martial arts schools in Milwaukee. So the reason I bring all this up is that's where my fitness career sort of started, was training or designing these exercise programs for various students. And then I mentioned I also spent a great deal of time in the kickboxing arena, and both the arena that you fight in, but also the essence of kickboxing, training with kickboxers, and and in kickboxing, going to amateur tournaments, going to professional fights. I never became a professional fighter, but my martial arts colleague and someone that I worked out with wanted to make that leap. So he did, and he hired me to become his trainer. And there was one day I was sitting there working on my exercise program for I forget who I was working on. And another day in my instructor's office, taking up one of his folding tables full of just books and I was really wanting to learn what I could about designing exercise programs. And again, like I said, it came easy to me. This was this came through me. In other words, this was always in here. I tapped into it. Martial arts was a way in. He said to me, you know, you could get paid for writing these exercise programs and become a personal trainer. And I said, really, they'll pay me for this? Because I wasn't getting paid for writing these little one-page programs. I would write them out in pencil. And he said, yeah, you can get paid for this, but you got to get a degree. And this is where it gets interesting because I never graduated high school. I don't know if a lot of you know, I'm writing a bibliography about my life, but a lot of people don't know that I never graduated high school. I got through the 9th grade. So here I was 17, kicked out of school again. They weren't even going to reinstate me. And I had to go to work early in life. And my father was very good at teaching me responsibility because he said, if you're going to play this game, he didn't say it this way, but if you're going to play this game, you're going to learn to pay rent. So I got a job at a foundry. I was moving steel by day and learning martial arts and working out by night. And the martial arts and the weightlifting eventually saved my life because I was on a road of self-destruction as a juvenile delinquent. So here I was perplexed because he said, you got to go back to school. And I'm like, I'm not even going to make it into college, let alone anything else. So this is important for you because I had to take steps. I had to make a decision in my life. And the clients that come to me are doing the same thing now more than ever, because in my career now, this is the second half of my career, starting from the year 2000 going forward. From 1987 to the year 2000, to me, that's the first half of my career. In the second half of my career, because of the knowledge that I gained, I like to work with people that nobody else can find solutions for. And when they sit with me and of course, they're referred, so they feel confident that the doctor or the friend who's a client of mine says, you know, go see Brian, he will help you figure this out. They are at the same crossroad I was making that decision to go back to school. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, there's going to be days that I'm not going to want to go to school, go back to school. Yes, it's going to be days I'm going to want to quit. And all those obstacles that come with that, I would share that with my clients. I'm up front more than I ever been. I'm more authentic now more than I've ever been in my career. So there I was at that crossroads, and I made the leap. And by then, by the time I got my GED, it was no easy process. I failed my first GED exam, and boy, I really felt like giving up. Went back to the streets, went back to the habits that weren't healthy. And I was already in the martial arts program, had been in there for years. And I came walking back in and got started again. And this would happen 4 or 5 times between, let's say, 1991 to about 1995. So I eventually got my GED, got accepted to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee because I had a dream, because I have a passion. I found something I believe in, I know I could do. There was something in me, there's a knowing. And I have to pull that out of every client. And the only way I can pull that out is to understand their history by fully consulting with them so that I can help them to achieve their dream, whatever that is, right? Whether it be a performance-based dream, getting past an injury, or a health challenge like digestive issues, cardiovascular issues, helping them with that process. And that brings me to a quote by Henry David Thoreau that I lived by back in the day. And it's poignant to what we're talking about here. Here's my step-by-step process. And look at this quote. Look at that. And let's read this. If one advances confidently in the direction of his or her dreams and endeavors to live the life which he or she has imagined, he or she will be met with success unexpected in common hours. But these steps, sometimes we stumble. And that's where I was upfront and honest with my client in saying, you know, there's going to be days you're going to want to quit. You're not going to feel like doing it. You might go through a little bit of depression. I'm sharing that with them because I went through it. I wouldn't be here today giving this presentation this day on June 24th if it wasn't for my commitment to live my dream. A lot happened in the 90s. I could have quit many a times. Business challenges, health challenges, death in the family, whatever the person, by the time they get to me, they've had these traumas that have blocked their potential in some way, shape, or form. So the step-by-step process becomes a journey. And I really look at my clients like students and not like the consumer client. Like I have a client that's working with me. I would rather refer to them as a student because they're enrolled with me and they want to graduate. And along the way, their body gets better and better. But not only their body, because I reassess, and eventually your performance gets better, your pain goes away, you're walking better, whatever it is, it gets better and better. But there are obstacles along the way that we're moving through life on a journey. And I call it the journey of self-actualization. There's one thing you're going to learn while working with me, and like I've learned joining the CHEK Institute, like I learned studying martial arts with my grandmaster, Thomas Sippen, like I learned from my father, like I learned from many people and many mentors in my life, even my clients, in that you have a purpose. And life usually has a way of bringing that out. Right? You're going to learn that today. This is just a preliminary video before we really get into step one, because I want to set the stage and let people know that this is more of a self-development process. Teaching you how to fish is empowering you with knowledge and wisdom and the practical skill to do it. So let's go back to the 90s. And I'm consulting with a client. And they said to me, how long will I work with you? Now, I guess other clients had said that, but you know, basically what we did back in the day is we got a referral and they signed up as a client, fill out a health history form and go work out. And I would see them 2-3 times a week until they went on vacation, or I don't know. And you know, I had maybe 15 clients at the club. West Dallas Athletic Club was one of the first professional, real personal training position before I opened my own business. And I had clients, whether it be at the club or on my own, for years. For years. Yes, some of them, like Kickboxer, I ended up designing programs for him. I would train with him 5 days a week. But if our schedules got mixed up, I would always provide him with a program to do tomorrow morning. I'm not available tomorrow morning, so this is what I want you to do. That became a model later on. But basically, I saw him every week. So she made me think. And the other thing that was happening in the 90s was here I was, a baby boomer. I'm 61 now. And the majority of my clients were baby boomers. And they were more open-minded. I'm definitely more open-minded than my father and my mother when it comes to at least this sort of thing. And I wanted to make a difference. And I also didn't want to have the same health challenges my father had, nor my mother. Unfortunately, my father, he died at age 61. That's my age now. He died suddenly. And my mother, she was actually younger. I think she was 48 years old. And I don't know about my sisters, but I knew for me, I needed to know what I needed to do to avoid that. I have so much life to live. I have a purpose. I have a dream. And I was so totally passionate about finding out the truth. Why did this happen? And a lot of things came to light. But I was gifted with this opportunity. Yes, the schooling helped. The college did help, but it only set the foundation. I needed to go back to school. I did a lot of workshops in the 90s. I went to as much as I could that was outside the box. I took workshops in post-exercise therapy. I took workshops in mind-body conditioning. I took extra workshops in mind-body integration. And I aligned myself with experts so that I could learn more. Even when I had the job at Competitive Edge Sports Medicine part-time, working right next to physical therapists, massage therapists, athletic trainers, orthopedic surgeons, acupuncturists, and even sports psychologists, that was also schooling for me. That was forming the web for what later would be developed as the outsourced referral team of integrated holistic practitioners. I started developing a team of people around my first company. In 1994, I launched my first personal training company, officially the Mind Body Connection. And I had about 15 practitioners wrapped around me, much like the ones that are listed here in this image. I was learning, but I needed to go back to a school, but I didn't want to become a physical therapist. I didn't want to go back to the institutions of college. I wanted to do something different. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't even know when, but I knew that I had a desire. And that's that desire I try to bring out. I eventually, the clients that I work with, I bring that out. I bring out their passion. And that's all part of feeling and moving well. So by the end of the 90s, I'm after doing all these different consultations back then, it's different now. What I started to realize is that as people were aging in the baby boom, age bracket, they were experiencing more and more challenges. When I would interview people, they had injuries in their past. They had muscle imbalances. They had other lifestyle issues. I knew that I needed to embrace a holistic approach. And I was thinking to myself, I want to get better at orthopedic fitness because the personal training, the performance part at the end, that is really, I'm real comfortable with that now. But up front, with all the imbalances and the weaknesses and all that, that I needed to really get my head wrapped around. So the future of fitness was changing. We were moving into a new paradigm, going from the 20th century into the 21st century, and you could see it with the growth of holistic medicine, the growth of integrated medicine, the movement to understanding the causation of illnesses was starting to come to life. The veil of deception was beginning to open, and the doors of perception were opening. You think about the 4 principles that I created here. Each principle is another door that we need to walk through in order to get to our dream. We have to understand that there's emotional challenges that affect how we move, that sleep affects how we move, that inappropriate digestion affects how we move, that inappropriate digestion affects how we think. And, I went through all this in many other videos that are located on my YouTube channel, that we were beginning to understand that the body is an integrated system of systems. It is a bioenergetic organism. It is a it is like this computer. Right now, I'm on my Mac. I'm integrating my PowerPoint presentation with my Zoom. Those systems are married together so that I can have this little presentation. That's what I mean by integrating systems with systems. So a lot of this was coming to light in the 90s. And I was moving towards that because every business that I created, I went from the mind-body connection for 3 years, and then I launched the Institute of Cellular Health and Fitness. Then I launched a life enhancement company, and then I became an integrated holistic personal trainer. The people I was working with had challenges, and I couldn't do it alone. Going back to my integrated model here, I couldn't do it alone. So I thought to myself, if the right hand knew what the left hand was doing, we could get better. And that model was born out of what I was learning at Competitive Edge Sports Medicine between 1991 and 1994. Because again, on staff, there was an acupuncturist, massage therapist, physical therapist, clinical psychologist or sports psychologist, orthopedic surgeon, etc. I was learning why they had these different models within that therapeutic setting. I was learning that there's a direct connection between the mind and body. That when we get stressed, it can affect muscle function. That when we get stressed, it affects digestive function, which can affect muscle function. But I needed formal education, but who was teaching this? So all said and done, plus a lot of obstacles I went through, again, going back to the steps, right? And going back to this, I was encountering a lot of challenges in the 90s, so much so that I had to stop working. I made a decision that I needed to get out, but I wanted to get a job in the industry where I could still learn, and I needed to go back to school. And the next door that would open in my life would be the opportunity to be employed by a good friend of mine from undergraduate school. He went out and became a chiropractor. I stayed in Milwaukee and maximized on building my services and going to continuing education courses and workshops. I started flying down there in the late 90s to shadow him before he had his own facility. And I was amazed. He said to me one day, he's going to open his own place. He says, I'm going to hire you, and you're going to run all the corrective exercises. And whatever you want to do as far as school, I'll back you on it. I got out of my business up in Milwaukee. I got on a Greyhound bus, put all my stuff in storage, packed up what I could, sent it UPS, took the rest on 2 duffel bags, and headed for North Carolina on a bus. I didn't even have a car. I sold that. And that's when everything shifted. And the other thing I was doing in the middle of the 90s is I was doing a lot of work on me. And again, all of what I teach my clients now is what I've put myself through. I needed to get my mind right because of all the things, the trauma from being a juvenile delinquent, what I experienced as a child, what I experienced as a teenager, the relationship issues I had, the deaths I had to deal with, my own health issues I had to deal with, the injuries that I had. I started a self-developmental process about 1992, and I got real steep into it in the middle 90s, and it works great. A lot of what I teach in my mind training course, if you will, but my mind training methodologies I now teach and share with my clients because it works. The books that were suggested to me, and learning how to meditate, and learning to let go, and learning to forgive myself, and learning to forgive other people. Why am I mentioning all this? Because when I get into this step-by-step process, in order to move well, you have to feel well. And one thing I will say at this point, when someone asks me, Well, what kind of clients do you work with? Now, I'll work with anybody. Give me your biggest challenge, because I love a challenge. I love getting to the cause. And again, that I don't do this alone. So when I get big challenges, like I had my first client here in North Florida when I moved here, that was a challenging client. That's what I want. The easy stuff is easy, but give me someone who didn't have success somewhere else. Let me backtrack to a client I had in Asheville that hired me when I finally reopened another place. Because remember, I closed all my businesses. I had 2 facilities in Wisconsin. And then I worked for that chiropractor, meditated. I enrolled at the CHEK Institute and worked on my studies. So all of this that you see up here is what I did when I moved to Asheville. And I opened up my first facility in Asheville, North Carolina in 2009. Nobody was aware of what functional training or functional movement was, or assessing functional movement patterns, or a holistic lifestyle coach. All of this was relatively new in that geographical area. But I got a referral, and this woman came to me. At the time, I think she was 67, maybe a little bit younger, but she was in her middle 60s. She had on and off going left hip and knee pain. And one of the questions that I ask in my consultation process is, how many different practitioners did you see? And how long did you have the challenge? So hers was on and off for 15 years. And she had been to orthopedic doctors, seen a physical therapist, had a personal trainer, tried Pilates, did yoga. And there was probably something else she did, chiropractic. And no long-term relief. In fact, when she was consulting with me, she was in pain. So after sharing with her how I work, and that I have a step-by-step process, and that you'll graduate and learn to do most of this on her own, she was interested in working with me more than once a week, because that was the model I eventually created. I'll get to that. But she was interested in working with me more. And I agreed that at the beginning, because of all the restoration, I would rather have you more. I'd rather see you more at the beginning, and then I'll wean you off, and then you can see me less, and you can follow your own home exercise system and tutorial videos. I sent her to the chiropractor, my friend, and between him and myself, and then she was seeing somebody for the emotional part. And what I learned from that first case was that the emotion and the digestive issues she was having were part of the reason she wasn't getting better. Because when the emotional stuff was starting to get reconciled, her periods of pain were reduced. When we helped her with her digestion and her nutrition, her pain reduced. And then I sent her to my chiropractic friend, and I worked in concert with him. The other thing about referring out is I communicate with everybody that's on my team. That's a must. You don't communicate with me, I'm not going to work with you. I had a client hire me once, was seeing a different chiropractor. I had just did her assessment, was going to get started with her, but I needed more information. He would not return my phone calls, so I had to tell her, I can't work with you. Those are my standards. I'm not just going to guess. And she was upset the fact that he wouldn't contact. So long story short, she ended up working with my guy, the one that I was hooked up with. I ended up hooking up with a couple in Asheville, but she worked with my best friend, and the rest was history. Because I can communicate. I can understand what they're doing, so that, number one, I don't want to undo their work. If she's seeing a massage therapist or a chiropractor, I don't want to give her the wrong exercise, because exercise is like medicine. But if it's wrongly prescribed, we got a problem. You're going to learn this in these steps. But this story helps drive home the importance of the step-by-step process, but it also fills the gap as, how did you come up with this? How did you know it works? Did you test it? Yes, it has an 19-year litmus test that I did between the time I opened in 2009 until I closed in 2022, and then moved and relocated to North Florida. It's a self-developmental approach. This journey that client with the left hip and knee pain, who eventually was 95% pain-free, all right, some things are going to still be there, but at least she wasn't at, 90% painful or 95% painful all the time. And the frequency was usually, when someone has a reoccurrence of pain, it's because something's happening in their lifestyle. Okay. So here I was in North Carolina with a new model, and knowing that I had to consult with people and get a lot of detailed information. And then if they decide to enroll with me, yes, they're my clients, but really they're students, you have homework. Remember, if I give you a fish, I only feed you for a day. So all I do is train you and don't really teach you anything. You're dependent on me. But if I teach you how to fish, you become self-empowered. And no matter what you look at in life, you have to become self-empowered and self-directed. That's why it's a self-actualization process. Trust me. You need to do this and look at it that way, because if you don't, when the obstacle does hit, and believe me, even that woman that had the left hip and knee pain, she had plenty of obstacles. I worked with her between 2011 and 2021, on and off. I started seeing her less towards the end. But on that journey, there were plenty of times she would call me. I'm all flared up again. I don't know what happened. Then I asked simple questions like, how was your sleep? What did you drink? What have you been eating? And what's going on in your, how are you handling your stress? What are you dealing with? The answers always were found by asking the right question. The Socratic method of teaching is what I embrace. The question is the answer. I don't understand why I'm in pain this morning. Well, let's start with, let's go back to, how did you sleep? I slept worth of crap. All right. What was your last meal? What was going on yesterday? Did you have any alcohol? Did you have any sugar? You see, the question is the answer, and the mystery is in the history. So whether I got to go back 48 hours or I got to go back 20 years, which is what I do, the mystery can be solved if I am looking at the right information and being like a detective, the comprehensive process, the comprehensive physical assessment. Now, yes, I have a basic consultation. The questionnaire isn't nearly as long, and we'll get into that in part 2. But the reason I draw this example, and I'm telling you this story, that by the time I relocated to North Carolina, and I spent 8 years in school, I studied every day, passing exams, flying out to get, I was the first case study. Let me mention that here. I was the first case study. If I'm not applying this to my body and mind, then how am I going to teach it? I got thoroughly evaluated by the chiropractor when I relocated. I did the blood work. I flew out to San Diego and did a 5-day intensive and had myself evaluated. And then I had homework. Meanwhile, in that 8 years, I'm taking what I'm learning and I'm applying it at a clinical level, because I want to see if this stuff works. And so did the chiropractor, because heck, he was part of my support. He said, Jeff, you want to go to the Czech Institute and study this, I'll send you there. In fact, he sent me to the other workshops, and there were plenty of other ones besides what I got listed here. If it wasn't for him, he was instrumental in me getting certified as a selected functional movement assessment specialist level 1. He was instrumental in me becoming certified as a functional movement screen specialist level 2. And he sent me to this workshop and that workshop and this workshop. And I used an authentic approach. And I still use an authentic approach to these methodologies. And when in doubt, yes, I had physical therapists that were part of my network. I know when not to be I'm real good at corrective exercise and all that. Therapeutic exercise is one of my specialties. But like with another client I had with a knee problem, I sent her to somebody, an osteopath. And he qualified what I was finding. I needed qualification with somebody who's got a formal degree. I said, this is what I'm suspecting. Go to him and see what he finds out. Whatever he finds out, I'm willing to work with him on. I just need to know what it is. You have a dream. What is your dream? We're going to get into this. Setting the stage, showing you that you have the ability to get past these challenges. Well, what about my athletic types? My kickboxer who wanted to win a world title, my powerlifter who wanted to win a world title, my triathlete who just wanted to finish the Ironman, the Hawaiian Ironman. The many other athletes I had. And later in life, I had someone who come to me who was a collegiate football player I worked with, who said, hey, I want to get in and become a Navy SEAL. These are heavy-duty dreams to become a professional athlete, to become a firefighter, to do something that takes way beyond the normal physical and mental capacities of an individual. I enjoy helping people get ready mentally and physically. Like I used to say when I had the Mind-Body Connection Incorporated, I not only train your body, but I train your mind. If your head isn't in the right direction, you're not going to make it through these steps. Just like with me making it through college and continuing with my education. I'm still in this institute. I'm only at level 2 out of 5. I'm on my way to my level 3 right now. Are the courses tougher? You betcha. It's like one of my mentors used to say, because we're always trying to climb to the next level. He'll say, with every level, there's another devil. Always something to challenge you. That's why I like complicated cases, because they make me smarter. I tell them, you're my greatest teacher. You're bringing me this hip, knee, neck, whatever challenge you're bringing me, it's my greatest teacher. You have now become my teacher, and I'm going to exchange that information and teach you how to understand this in layman's terms and what you need to do to change within your lifestyle and your exercise to prevent it from reoccurring. Because the baby boomers want more. They want to know more about this stuff. And sure they did. I was booked solid in Asheville. When I opened my own service, I was booked solid at the clinic, of course, but when I opened my own service, I was offering something nobody was offering. And they said, a lot of people said you couldn't do it. I was told that right at the beginning in 1991. You'll never do it. And I was told that by many people along the way. So I said, well, the only way people are going to know that this is important is if we teach them. That's what this little short video is here for, is to teach you why it's important to gather the information up front so that you don't get all the way through your steps only to find out there were things that were missed, and now you got to come back to ground zero. That's when usually they walk through my door. I've been to the physical therapist, Brian. I've had trainers, Pilates instructors. I go to chiropractors. I do this, I do that, and I end up back in pain. What's missing? We're here to figure this out. The doors will open. The doors of perception. The mysteries in the history. So in the next video, I will cover what's involved in either the basic or comprehensive consultation. What is your wellness and movement dream? And then I'll help you to set up short-term intentions to get you there. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And that's where we are today. We're at the first step of your journey. And it's an inside job. I'm Brian Schwager. Follow me next time as we embark on the journey and going through the consultation process to find out the mystery that's hidden in your health history, to uncover what's in the way of you achieving your dream. Have a great day. Bye for now.